Oh, hello. Welcome to Forgotten Legends of Sound. You caught me reading Ernest Hemingway. All jokes aside, yeah, welcome. I wanted to do something a little bit different. Me and my brother both live in different states, so there is a chance that we probably wouldn't release much videos. So since I was here, I figured maybe I could just go through like my favorite albums from every single year going forward. And this was something that Kevin was cool that I just did on my own. Mostly because he's not as much of a fan of some of these earlier eras of music. Like he loves a lot of songs from that time period, but not as much as albums. So, anyways, I'm starting with 1963, and I wanted to kind of preface this with a few things. I'm not a big jazz person. I'm not huge into jazz music, so even though there's all these iconic albums that paved the way for music or whatever in the jazz realm during this era, I'm not going to include any of them because it's just not my thing. But also another thing too is like when I'm sharing what are my favorites, I'm sharing pretty much what are the albums that I enjoy going back to and listening to over and over and over again. So I'm not placing as much emphasis on like historical impact or influence or things like that, because this isn't like most iconic albums or most like game changing albums. This is my personal favorite that I enjoy listening to. Um, and another thing that I wanted to also talk about too was sometimes when you're watching YouTube videos, somebody's just like portraying information to you, and it's kind of a little bit boring because it's just like number 10 is this, number 9 is this, number 8 is this. And I kind of like seeing other people discovering things. So I wanted to set this up as I don't know what my number 1 pick will be. I don't know what my number 10 pick will be. I wanted to just share, here's my favorite albums from this year, and then from that stack of CDs, pick what is 10, 9, 8, just on video so that you could kind of see what I'm thinking about and how I decide these picks or whatever. So anyways, I hope that's fun for somebody. If not, then that's okay. But I don't think there's anything else I really need to cover. So yeah, I think we're going to just jump right into it. 1963 is an easy year to do because I only have 10 albums from this year. So nothing's going to be kicked off of the top 10 of the year. So, and that's the reason why I'm starting with this year, because previous years I only have like 1 or 2 albums or whatever from. So anyways, so starting off, I'm just going to share all of these albums, and then I'll start deciding where I'm going to place them as far as favorites go. So the first album is Beach Boys. This is Surfin' USA. Pretty good record. I'll have to figure out where that one's going to go. The second album is going to be the Beach Boys again with Surfer Girl. Definitely a step up in my opinion. Really good record. The third album that we have here is Little Deuce Coupe from the Beach Boys. These dudes were on a roll. They, I guess, wrote a lot and worked a lot. Granted, their albums are like 25 minutes long, so I mean, yeah. But in either way, though, still 25 minutes, like 3 albums in a year is still a feat. And then we also got the Beatles with Please Please Me. Awesome debut record. Kind of underrated, I feel like, from Beatles fans. And then we also got the Beatles with the Beatles. So a good follow-up, but not as, yeah, I don't like it as much. And then we also got Bob Dylan with the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Yeah, if you're a lyrics person, I think everybody who likes lyrics probably likes Bob Dylan. And then we also have, this is the Four Seasons with Big Girls Don't Cry. Awesome record. I love the Four Seasons. I love Frankie Valli's voice. It might be a love-hate relationship kind of thing, but for me, as far as 60s singers go, Frankie Valli's like in my top 3 or whatever. Not that I've thought through who all of them would be, but he's up there. And then in the same year, the Four Seasons also released Ain't That a Shame and 11 Others. So yeah, pretty good record. Let's see. And then we also have Roy Orbison. This is kind of like a collection thing where I got 2 albums. So the album that we're talking about is In Dreams from Roy Orbison, released in 1963. Really good record. But I have some hangups, but we'll talk about that. And the 10th album that we're going to cover is Dionne Warwick, and this is another compilation thing. This is Presenting Dionne Warwick, 1963, her debut album. Fantastic record, awesome singer. Yeah, so now that we know what we're working with here, I guess I should probably pick what number 10 is. And going through these, I don't know. Honestly, man, it's probably going to be painful to do this in some ways, but that's okay. We can live with it, right? I think my number 10 pick of 1963 is probably going to be Bob Dylan. I know some people are going to just be like, what? What do you know, whatever. But I mean, I like this album. I've heard it a number of times, like maybe like 5 or 6 times. There are some classics. Blowing in the Wind is awesome. Don't Think Twice, It's Alright is another highlight. Hard Rain's Gonna Fall is good. Girl from the North Country. It's got a lot of good tracks, but then it also has some tracks that don't do anything for me. I Shall Be Free doesn't do nothing. Karina Karina, Honey, Just Allow Me One More Chance. Talking World War III Blues is too long, and I'm not a big fan of that one. So it's an album that half of it I enjoy, I really like, and then half of it I kind of just don't really care for. It's a good record, but I think he would do much better, and I don't know why that lyric, let's see if I don't butcher this, that lyric where he's like, some people could be right some of the time, and some people could be always right some of the time, and sometimes right all the time, but nobody could be always right all of the time. I think Abraham Lincoln said that. I don't know why. I hate that lyric. I think it just sounds so dumb. It just sounds so dumb to me. Granted, this dude, like, he's written lyrics that are freaking genius. So, I mean, like, I could gripe on, like, one lyric, you know? I'm not dogging Bob Dylan because dude's written, like, a million lyrics way better than I ever could, you know? But that lyric, every time I hear it, I always facepalm with how dumb it just sounds. Anyways, probably not something Bob Dylan fans wanted to hear. But that being said, it's my 10th favorite. It's a good record, but it's not something that is, like... Yeah, anyways, so that's number 10, Bob Dylan, Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Number 9, I'm kind of thinking it's going to be one of those Beach Boy albums, because the thing is like, when you're going through, and I've heard all 3 of these a bunch of times, and Little Deuce Coupe and Surfer Girl, both of those like share like 4 songs or something. I think Little Deuce Coupe was released a couple weeks after Surfer Girl, so it feels a little redundant. I probably should have put this as like a, this is like a technical foul or whatever for Beach Boys doing this, because it feels kind of redundant. It doesn't, I don't know. So I'm giving it a little bit of garbage for that, because nobody likes to hear, we want new songs. When you get a new album, you want new songs. You don't want to hear the songs on the previous album. So I think a part of it is kind of like, I like these 2 more than the, Surfing USA album, but part of that is because they just share some of the hits or whatever. Like Little Deuce Coupe is on both of them or whatever, and Car Club is on both of them, or I think there's a couple more also. So I think number 9 is probably going to be Little Deuce Coupe. Yeah, it's a good record, but man, I like Be True to Your School. Is that another one that's on this one, or? No, I guess not. Yeah, Be True to Your School is pretty dope. Yeah, it's a great record, and I think it flows pretty good. I think this album has a little bit more character. It's a little bit different. There's a ton of instrumental stuff too, so it's kind of different. Maybe this isn't the most like thought out objective point, but Little Deuce Coupe is probably number 9 for 1963. Number 8. What would we put for number 8? Sorry, Beatles fans. Okay, With the Beatles is a great record, but man, it loses steam in the second half really bad for me. I like their cover of the Please Mr. Postman. The first 3 tracks are all great. It Won't Be Long, yeah, 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 yeah. It won't be long, yeah, 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 it won't be long. It's a banger. It's freaking awesome. All I've Got to Do is great. All my lovin' I will give to you. All my lovin'. Yeah, great first half. It just falls off really bad in the second half, whereas the first album, It's solid pretty much all the way through. It's still a great record. Granted, I mean, these are still like, even though I'm comparing them to each other or whatever, I still enjoy all of these albums. They're all good albums. I wouldn't have bought them if they weren't good albums. But, you know, still, I have little gripes or whatever. They're not, this isn't like a masterpiece or a brilliant record. But, you know, if you're a fan of the Beatles and you like early Beatles stuff, like, give it a go. Some of the songs sound a bit samey over time. I could see that as being a hindrance for some people, but yeah, it's still a good record, but I think it's probably number 8 in my favorites. Yeah, so anyways, yeah, with the Beatles, number 8. Let's go number 7. Number 7, I hate to do this to Roy Orbison. Roy Orbison is a great singer. Don't get me wrong, the dude's a better singer than I am. Like, all of these people are better singers than I am. But, and this is for In Dreams, I don't know if any of you guys get tired of this, but I sometimes get tired of, like, it's not every song, but most of the songs on this, it'll end with this triumphant ending, and you can tell his voice is strained, and it'll be like, "In dreams," and then it's like, he does that like 5 or 6 times on this album, and with every song doing that, it starts getting on my nerves as it goes. Those who have listened to this album know what I'm talking about, and maybe you like that. Maybe you're like, "Oh man, phenomenal," you know, like, this is how you do it, man, like chef's kiss, all that crap, you know. But at the same time, there are some bangers on this album too. Like, it is a great album, and whereas Beach Boys and like Beatles are a little bit more simple as far as instrumentation goes, it's more rock and roll, you know, it's more straight up. Beatles is kind of more ballady than those early Beach Boys is more ballady than those early Beatles. But like Four Seasons, Dionne Warwick, Roy Orbison, these albums are much more like cinematic, orchestral. They've got all that sort of lush sound to them, so that kind of helps these albums to kind of stand out a little bit. They're a little bit more musically rich, if that makes sense. But I mean, tracks like In Dreams and Shadaroba are great. Sunset's good. Blue Bayou's awesome. Yeah, his cover of All I Gotta Do Is Dream is good. It's a good record, but man, so there's something about Roy Orbison's voice that I enjoy it, but I can't enjoy it for long periods of time. Same thing with Bob Dylan. I can't enjoy his voice over long periods of time because I don't know. It's like I like them in small doses, if that makes sense. But man, dude, In Dreams, like when that song begins, there's a reason why all the movie directors love putting that song in like their movies and stuff because it's so freaking good. But anyways, yeah, this is a great record. I just have small gripes with In Dreams, but still, number 7, great record still. Number 6 is, oh man, no. I think Roy Orbison, I think I did him dirty. Let's say number 7 is Beach Boys. So discard all of it. Well, save all of that for the next one, I guess. Surfing USA, this is an album that I didn't care for that much at first. Like, there's like 4 or 5 like instrumental tracks on it, so I didn't care for it that much. But I mean, Surfing Safari's great. I like the man, what is it? Lonely Sea is great, or not Surfing Safari. Surfing Safari's on the previous record. Surfing USA. Yeah, I like Lonely Sea is a great ballad. Farmer's Daughter is great. Yeah, Finders Keepers fun. Yeah, Lana's pretty good. I don't know. It's a good record, and it took me some time to kind of get, I guess, accustomed to it or whatever. Anyways, I think my number 7 is probably Surfing USA. Then number 6 is probably Roy Orbison with In Dreams. So sorry, Roy. You know. So now let's see. Number 5. We're getting down to some of these, and I think number 5 is probably Surfer Girl from the Beach Boys. This is still a fantastic record. Yeah, you've got Surfer Girl's an awesome song. You've got, you know, Little Deuce Coupe is great. Surfer's Rule, yeah, it's pretty good. Boogie Woody is a pretty good instrumental track. Surfer Moon's good. Anyway, this album just feels a little bit more full, and the songs feel a little more rich compared to the previous record. Yeah, a fun record, and Surfer Girl's awesome. As far as like some of the best Beach Boys songs, like that, Surfer Girl's freaking awesome. But yeah, I guess I don't have a ton to say about this. I mean, it seems like if you talk about one Beach Boy album, you're kind of talking about the other ones also the same way. Like, I like their ballads, I like their music, I like Brian Wilson's voice. So yeah, number five. So now it's probably getting a little trickier. So I think number four is probably gonna be Four Seasons with "Ain't That a Shame." I think this is their third record, and I got this from there's a box set that had like all of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons albums. It's missing like one album from like the '70s, so I don't know why that one's omitted. But it was a cool way to try to get all of their discography because I'd grown up with some of these music, Beatles or Beach Boys or Four Seasons. I grew up with a lot of oldies stuff. My dad would play it on tapes in the car, and I wanted to know what these songs sound like in a context of an album rather than just by themselves. You know, because I noticed that especially in high schools when I think I started buying albums. Me and my brother, we both started buying albums more so in high school, and it was weird when you're so accustomed to a hit song and you listen to it on a record, then it's like everything else is so unfamiliar that all of a sudden you get this jab of like familiarity in one track and then all of a sudden back to unfamiliarity. And it was just kind of weird. Like I wanted to learn to appreciate some of these hit songs in the context of the albums that they're taken from, because I grew up on greatest hits type stuff. You know, that was a good introduction to get into bands. And that was how I got into a lot of like hard rock, 80s stuff. That's how I got into classic rock, synth pop, all of those genres. I pretty much started off with people's greatest hits before I started delving into their albums. And that's the same thing with this kind of music, 60s kind of stuff. I think I was in college when I started getting more interested in actually hearing albums from Bee Gees and ABBA and some pop stuff that, you know, I liked a bit when I was growing up, but I wasn't like ecstatic about, you know. So little caveat, I guess. So the fourth album for 1963, yeah, "Ain't That a Shame." This is a good record. I like their cover of "Stay." I think that's really good. But there's two songs that are a little bit cheesy and kind of get on my nerves a little bit. "Honey Love" is one of them. That's cheesy, but it's kind of fun. I kind of like it. But the other one, geez, it's which one is it? Yeah, "That's the Only Way." Freaking freaking Frankie Valli, he'll always be like, "That's the only way," yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just like he always uses all of this weird freaking. I think he just wanted to joke around or something with his vocals, but his voice just sounds so terrible. He's just, "That's the only way," yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't even do it, but it just sounds such rubbish, man. With that being said, though, everything else on here is awesome. I love Candy Girl. Marlena is awesome. Marlena, na, na. You can say that you can win. Da, na, na, na. Yeah, long, long and lonely nights. You know, like that freaking, that sort of like soulful kind of music. That stuff, I love that kind of music. It's really awesome. Yeah, I've heard this album a ton of times, but it's always nice to kind of read the track listing just to remember, like, yeah, this album's freaking sick. "Ain't That a Shame" is good. "Melancholy" is a great song. Everything else on here is really freaking awesome. So yeah, number four, Four Seasons. Great record. Number three for 1963 is probably the Beatles, "Please Please Me." This is a fantastic record. It's, I don't know, I need to re-listen to some of the later Beatles because I think I got into the later Beatles first before I got into the early Beatles, but this is like one of their best records. I Saw Her Standing There is great. "Misery's" good. "Go to Him's" pretty good. "Boys is Whatever." But then like the second half is freaking "Please Please Me" is awesome. "P.S. I Love You." You know, that song is a banger. Na 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 "P.S. I Love You." I can't remember the lyrics, but like that melody or whatever is one of those melodies that I remember hearing as a kid and thinking it was kind of magical sounding. Yeah, and then "A Taste of Honey's" pretty good. It's kind of a little bit weirder. "There's a Place" is good. "Twist and Shout" is awesome. "Do You Want to Know a Secret? Ooh, ah, woo, do you promise not to tell? Oh, closer, ooh, ah, ooh." You know, there's so many just catchy songs on this record, and Yeah, this is a fantastic album. I guess I don't have much to say. But honestly, I mean, all of these are great records. So, just because this is three and the other one's six or something doesn't mean that it doesn't mean there's a huge gap between how much I enjoy something versus, I'll let it be known if there is a huge gap, I guess. Um, so not the last one, but oh man, actually, man, um, this is actually going to be a little bit harder. I think my number two pick is probably Dionne Warwick. This is introducing Dionne Warwick. This is a phenomenal freaking album. Her voice is great. The melody parts, um, yeah, wishing, hoping, is good. Even I remember hating Zippity Doo Dah as a kid because I remember going to Disneyland and then play that song and I was like, yeah, this freaking ride sucks. Let's. Anyways, I remember hating that song, but I actually like her doing it. Yeah, it's love that really counts. It's a really good record. Don't make me over. Like freaking now that I think around you. Don't make me over. And then there's that melody from the violins. I say, it almost sounds like Whitney Houston's, well, Dolly Parton or whatever. I'll always love you. Every time it does that melody, it always makes me think about the and I, but then it just goes. Anyways, that's besides the point, I guess. But yeah, it's a great Love of a Boy is phenomenal. Yeah, this is a really good record. The track listing is a little bit weirder on here. When I ripped the album and put it on my iPod, I made sure that the track listing was like how it was originally supposed to be or whatever on the LP or whatever. So yeah, kind of more enjoyable I think that way. But Dionne Warwick's got a great voice. The orchestrations in that album are awesome. It's a fantastic record. I'm a little new to Dionne Warwick. I didn't grow up with her music at all. So just in the last year, I've been listening to a ton of Dionne Warwick, and I think she's phenomenal. So, number one pick, best album of 1963 is The Four Seasons, Big Girls Don't Cry. This is a fantastic freaking record. Walk Like a Man is, I remember listening to that when I was a kid and thinking it was a dope song. Yeah, that one's awesome. I love their cover of Silhouettes. I think that's cool. Lucky Ladybug's kind of fun. I love Tonight, 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 Tonight. Na 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 na. Yeah, just also their rendition of Why Do Fools Fall in Love is great. Alone is awesome. Alone, why must I be alone? You didn't need the finger snaps, but they're there. Na 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 na, time with you. Na na, being alone. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, this album is like almost perfect. I think. Sincerely is a great freaking ballad. I love those moody ballads that Frankie Valli and them do. I like the ballad songs much more than the goofy joke songs or whatever, you like Peanuts and crap, But I don't know. This is a freaking great record. Since I Don't Have You is good. It's not as good as what was the other one? The Skyliners or the Platters? Maybe it was the Platters. I think that version was better, but theirs is still good. Of course, Big Girls Don't Cry is awesome. Good Night, My Love is great. So yeah, this is a phenomenal record. I know like some people like they struggle with early music. They're like, oh, it sounds dated. This is like old people music or whatever. But I think there's a charm to it. Like there's something about it that I could keep listening to over and over and over. And I've heard this album probably like 20 times or something like that. And I've been listening to all of these albums in preparation for this video because I wanted to make sure that I at least was like, at least knew kind of what was on these albums because it's hard to really rate something if you don't really know it. So some of these I've been listening to years, and then some of them, like the Dionne Warwick, is a much more recent album that I've listened to. But yeah, this 1963 is a great year. So anyways, this was an easy one to do because there was only 10 records, but in the following years there's like 20, in the 90s and 2000s there's like hundreds of albums, so it's going to be harder to kind of parse through those. So I know it's ambitious, but maybe I'll get to those, maybe not. But yeah, it was kind of fun doing this, and I hope that by doing this, instead of just creating content that gets lost in the void called the internet, I hope that this at least has, like, some way of reaching somebody who's like, oh yeah, I dig those, or at least influencing somebody to give like a second glance to some of these artists. Because when I was younger, the bands that have kind of like, I guess, translated to future generations, Beach Boys, Beatles, and that's kind of it as far as like early 60s music. It hasn't really moved to the younger crowds or whatever. Whereas artists like the Four Seasons, Dionne Warwick, some of those artists have been just forgotten by younger people. And I find that to be a travesty. I hope that more younger people can also go back and hear some of this classic music that is just really good, and not just, oh yeah, Beatles are the best because it's the only 60s band that I listen to. Like, and if you want to listen to the Beatles, there's nothing wrong. I love the Beatles, like there's nothing wrong with that. But I hope that this video, as well as all of our videos, like I hope that we're able to share some awesome music with people that maybe the mainstream hasn't given as much of a spotlight on. I'm not seeing very many Dionne Warwick t-shirts in Walmart. I'm seeing a lot of like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and stuff, which are phenomenal bands. But anyways, hopefully, yeah. So long way of saying, hopefully that this kind of, promotes some of those bands that should get a little bit of love. But all 10 of those records are great artists. I guess I'm just running out of things to say, so I'll just end it there. Thanks for watching. Support music, go to shows, support whatever bands that you like. These are the bands I like. And thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day.